SistersInCrime presents Jill Orr. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's premier independent bookstore since 1969. My name is Shane Mullen, and I'm the events host and manager here at Left Bank Books. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It takes a lot of work to bring in close to 300 authors each year to the local literary community, and it's only with your support that we're able to do so. When you make a purchase from an independent business, your money goes back into your own schools, parks, roads, and community projects at an incredibly higher rate than when you buy at a chain store or an online retailer. So thank you all so much for supporting us tonight. A couple of upcoming events that you might be interested in. On Tuesday, April 17th, Left Bank Books, Maryville Talks Books, and St. Louis Public Radio welcomes St. Louis journalist Sarah Kinsey-Orr, who will sign and discuss her new book, The View from Flyover Country, Dispatches from the Forgotten America. And she will be in discussion with St. Louis on the Air's Dawn Marsh. Tickets are officially on sale for Ruth Ware on June 7th at the Ethical Society for her new book, The Death of Mrs. Westaway. She is coming all the way from the UK, and I want to show her that St. Louis loves its mystery authors. And you can join me in fangirling out on her. I will be going a little crazy that evening because I love her. We also just announced an event with Lori Rader Day in August for her new book, Under a Dark Sky. Lori is the president of the Midwest Mystery Writers of America and was recently nominated for the Thriller Award. She is also a Sisters in Crime member. Yay. I have long been a fan of her work, and you can meet her along with other authors at the St. Louis County Library Suspense Night in May, where she'll be discussing her previous book in which I am a character. I'm a sheriff's deputy. Very unrealistic. The next couple of months are packed with some really incredible authors, so be sure to join our mailing list and check out all of our events at left-bank.com. Tonight, Jill Orr will be in discussion with Fedora Amos. I was really far.
You're making it really hard.
Fedora Amos won the Mayhaven Fiction Prize for her Victorian whodunit, Jack the Ripper in St. Louis, Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West. Fedora's tribute to Sedalia, Missouri, and the world's biggest traveling show was a finalist in the 2017 Missouri Writers Guild contest. She dons corset and hoop skirts to perform as real historical people and imagined characters from the 1800s. She has one son, Skimmer, who partners with Fedora in writing science fiction, fantasy, and magical realism. Jill Orr is the author of The Goodbye Line, the first in the Riley Ellison mystery series. A graduate of the University of Missouri Journalism School, Orr serves on the board of the Unbound Book Festival. She lives in Columbia, Missouri with her husband and 2 children, and The Bad Break is her second novel. A ray of sunshine cloaked in a mystery. Orr is one to watch, the best humorous mystery writer around with a voice all of her own. That is a quote from Laura McHugh, the international best-selling author of The Weight of Blood and Arrowwood. I love the character of Ridley. She has spunk and would react to these situations much like I would, with a little fear and a lot of someone's got to do it. It is a thoroughly pleasurable read, and that is a quote from Shane Mullen, who is standing right in front. Tonight, Jill and Fedora will be discussing Jill's new book, The Bad Break, answering your pressing questions and signing copies of their books, which are available for purchase at the desk. Would you please help me in enthusiastically welcoming Jill Orr?
Right up front, I wanted to ask you this. Are you a member of any writer organizations?
Well, funny you should ask, but I'm a Sisters in Crime member.
Oh,
No, I'm a Sisters in Crime member, and I'm also the Mystery Writers of America and International Thriller Writers. And it's actually, I really like being a member of a writing, a national writing organization. It kind of gives you a sense of community, and the organizations, I think, do great work for authors and for readers, and I'm very proud to be a member of Sisters in Crime.
Well, I wanted to know, when did you first realize that you had talent for writing? When was that?
Well, I guess I was always someone who communicated through writing. So my mom tells a story about how when I was very little, if I would get mad at her, I would write little notes and leave them on her pillow, and so I was always able to communicate my feelings, I guess, better, writing it down than just speaking. So that was kind of always, how I made sense of the world. And in high school, I wasn't exactly an exceptional student. I would say writing was the only bright spot on an otherwise very average academic career. So when it came time to, choose a college, I thought that I would go to journalism school because journalist sounded better than unemployed English major. That was a little less scary. And so, yeah, so really my only formal education in writing was nonfiction, journalistic writing.
That's a good place to start.
It really was. I think it helps you get really comfortable with deadlines.
And details.
And details, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
What inspired you to write mysteries after all of this journalism background?
That's a good question. Well, I was always a mystery reader, so that was kind of always my favorite genre to read. I love series too. I love when you read a book and then you can, kind of stay with that character for a while and follow them through. So, that was, I guess, just my favorite thing to write. But actually the first two books that I wrote that are in the depths of my hard drive that no one will ever see, because they are horrible.
Well, we've all got a few.
Yeah, I think we do.
Buried works.
Yes, right, that should never be read by anybody. But those weren't mysteries. Those were just like general women's fiction, maybe chick lit we're calling that. I don't know if that term is used anymore, but they were not mysteries. And so I think when I found my way to writing mysteries, it kind of clicked for me because you have all these things you have to do when you're writing a mystery. You need a crime, you need a bad guy, you need a sleuth, you need clues, you need red herrings, and you can kind of like, hang your story on all these little pegs, and it kind of helps pull it along and kind of solves that pacing problem that I think sometimes you can get into when you try to write something that's less structured than a mystery.
Who do you think those books appeal to? Those that are mysteries and those with structure? Either one. Take either one.
Like readers or?
Yes. Who are you writing for?
Oh gosh. Is it too bad to say anybody who will read it? Is that maybe that's the most realistic answer. I don't know. I mean, I think that mysteries, there's a certain, this is gonna sound too highbrow, but there's a certain like intellectual pleasure, I think, in a mystery because you're trying to figure out who did it along with.
It's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle, right? So you're reading and you're trying to interpret the clues and you're thinking about, how does this fit together and what have I learned before, and as opposed to, a thriller, which can also be a mystery, but it's more of like that frenetic pace where you're just like going from one disaster to the next to the next. I think of mysteries as slightly, maybe not slower paced, but slightly more
Cerebral?
Cerebral, thank you, that's exactly the word, yeah. So you're all very smart for having read books.
And for being here.
Yes, obviously, clearly the smartest audience I've ever seen.
So do you do a lot of research before you start writing?
No, I'm not a big researcher. I do have a lot of Google searches that would probably get me, put on some sort of watch list or, for the first book, I did a lot of Googling about how to murder someone and make it look like a suicide. There are certain things you have to look up that are probably frowned upon by the authorities.
Probably on the watch list
I'm
somewhere.
Sure I am, yeah. I haven't tried to fly internationally lately, but we'll see how that goes. I think I do just enough that to get by, kind of, if that makes sense. I mean, I decided to set the books in a fictional town because I didn't want to have to mess with like geography and getting
clearances.
Yeah, just getting it right, because the books are set in Virginia, they're obviously not in Missouri, so it would be hard to run over and make sure I got the the intersection correct, and I didn't want anyone writing me letters telling me that oh, that's not a Taco Bell, that's an IHOP on that so I was like, okay, so I made up a town, and that was.
Why was it Virginia, by the way? Why
So
Virginia?
yeah, that's a good question. So when I started writing the book, I was in Virginia. I was visiting my in-laws who lived there half the year, and it was so beautiful there. It's just, Missouri's beautiful too, but this had the ocean, and it was just lovely. And my mother-in-law is a docent at one of like homes in colonial Williamsburg, and she brought me with her to this, I think it's the Andrew Tucker House, I think it's called. And I went with her, and she introduced me to this woman who I based the Mrs. Winterthorne character on. And this woman was so, I mean, she was very elderly, but she was so interesting, and I could have listened to her talk. I mean, she could have read me the phone book, and I would have just been glued. Like, she just had that lilting accent, and the way she described things, and she was not in a hurry at all, and she had the most wonderful colloquialisms, and I just was completely charmed by her. And so I thought, you know, people like this would be fun to populate a book.
So that's real Southern charm.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was impressed.
Do you have any writing rituals? Do you have to be eating a ginger snap when you write?
Does someone have that ritual?
Well, Simeon had to write when he was in the bathtub, so I was, you know, bringing it smaller.
Yeah, no, and I think that's part of the journalism school training. You know, I'll write whenever I have time and you know, the opportunity. I can sit down for 20 minutes and write something, or I can, you know, I mean, of course I prefer to have longer, you know, expanses of time. It's more fun to sit there and really kind of let it go. But I need coffee, but I think generally, since I'm in my mid-40s, I need coffee just to exist, like most days, so I don't know that that's specific to writing, but, no, I'm not an outliner, so I don't, you know, I'm just not really a systems person. You know, I kind of just sit down each day, and some days I'm going to revise what I did the day before, and some days I'm just going to keep going with it, and, you know, it kind of depends, I think, on the mood. Are you an outliner?
Oh, no, I'm not an outliner. I'm kind of a hit or miss, and I write very slowly. It sounds like you could put your tush in a chair for 10 hours a day and just go for it.
Oh, I'll tell you, I could. When I was in Virginia, actually, that time when I was, you know, what I referred to earlier, so my daughter was at horse camp, and so it was my mother-in-law and I, just the two of us, and I was staying in this house that they rented that is literally like on the main street of colonial Williamsburg. If you've been there, it's like, you know, the cobblestone street. I can't remember the name of the house. The Craig House, the Alexander Craig House. So if you go there, remember that. And like, they don't have great internet in colonial Williamsburg. You know, I mean, on the street it's okay, but in the structures they just don't. And so I had no distraction. And I think I was there for 5 days, and I think I wrote 20,000 words in those 5 days. Because I had nothing else to do. I had no internet. I had no one around. She was busy doing her thing, and I had no kids to take care of, and I just sat there and do all day. It was great. I loved it.
That's amazing. I have a friend who goes to a motel, you know, a stripped down motel, and writes when she's on deadline, and says there is nothing more inspiring to her than a picture of the Grand Canyon.
Really?
Because it's so boring.
Yeah. Yeah, boredom is actually a really good motivator, so I need to remember that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of book 3 right now, really needing to meet my deadline.
Well, who would you say has influenced your writing? Is it people that you read, or teachers, or what?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I would say people that I read. You know, I think I always say this, and I think a lot of people say it, it's true. I think one of the most important qualifications for becoming a writer is being a reader. You know, so I am a big reader, and I kind of read everything. I'm omnivore. Like, I read sci-fi, I read fantasy, I read mysteries, romance. I mean, I'll read anything. So, but I would say, like, the people that I'm most inspired by personally, like, for my work, would be people who also write kind of like with the humorous tone, you know. So Maria Semple, I always mention her. She's one of my very favorites. She wrote Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Love that book. I've been really into the Alan Bradley mystery series lately, the Flavia DeLuce books. Do you know those?
Not really, no.
Oh, they're so good. So they're really, really fun. They're set in England, so they're kind of a historical mystery, I guess. And they're told in first person from the perspective of an 11-year-old British girl. And the man who writes them is like a 70-something-year-old American. And it's amazing. He's like dead on with his language. I mean, it's, and actually the first time he'd ever been to Britain was when they flew him there to give him an award for the books.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, which is crazy. And I want to say he's almost 80 now, because there are like 9 books in the series, and he's written them very quickly, but they're charming. And the main character, like I said, she's 11, and she's like really into chemistry, and so she has all these fantasies about how she's going to poison people she doesn't like. So I mean, she doesn't do it, but it's just really funny. I don't know. I guess I'm inspired by that. Which is weird, but yeah.
So you love to read mysteries. How long have you been reading them? When did you start loving mysteries? Do you have any idea when?
Well, that's a good question. So when we were when I was reading, you know, you kind of sent me your questions, and I was looking through the list, and it was talking about early reads. My first book that I remember reading and having like a visceral reaction to was in 3rd grade. It was Where the Red Fern Grows. Does anyone know that book? I mean, I can still remember sobbing, like sitting against the bleachers in the gym at the elementary school that I went to, just bawling, you know, when you find out where the red ferns grow and why, and it's, oh God, it's so sad. And so that was kind of my first reaction to a book, but I read, you know, Judy Blume and, you know, all those typical early 80s era books. And Encyclopedia Brown, I guess maybe that was one of the first mysteries that I really liked. Nancy Drew, of course, I read those, and I mean, yeah, you gotta love that. So there were a lot.
I don't know if you caught Shane's Freudian slip when he called Riley.
Oh, Ridley.
Ridley.
Yes, yeah.
You want to talk about that a little?
Oh, yeah. So there are 2 characters in, the main character obviously is Riley Ellison, and she, in the first book, she's kind of confronted with the fact that her longtime boyfriend, who she thought she would, you know, marry and live happily ever after with, you know, he broke up with her very quickly and started dating this other woman named Ridley. And so Ridley, she kind of thinks of, I don't know if anyone's a Seinfeld fan, but is like, she thinks of as like the bizarro her, is like kind of her exact opposite in every way. And she's kind of tall and perfect and very laid back and athletic, all the things that Riley is not. And I have to say, one of the surprising things that happened in the second book, we actually get to meet Ridley, because she moves to Tuttle Corner and, you know, becomes part of the fabric of the community. She's having a baby, and she's, you know, moving there. She's from Sweden, and so she doesn't want to move back there to have a baby. She wants to stay in America, so she moves to Tuttle. And it was really surprising that this sort of odd but nice friendship grew between Riley and Ridley, and I didn't plan that at all. And it was just kind of, they just wanted to become friends. I mean, Ridley more wanted to be Riley's friend. Riley kind of resists it, but
she's new in town.
Yeah, she's new in town, and she's, you know, that's just her personality. She's just kind of open to life and new experiences, and she's, you know, and Riley is like, we don't need to be friends. This is okay. It's all good. I'm sure you're lovely, but like, live along. And Ridley persists with it, and they do kind of develop this nice friendship, and that was kind of a fun surprise, because I didn't see that happening beforehand.
So which one is more like you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, for sure Riley, I would think. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not laid back or athletic or any of those things. So yeah.
Well, if the Bad Brain were made into a movie, who do you see as playing Ridley and Riley?
Ridley, that's a good question. I haven't thought of that one. So this is a question that I do talk about sometimes at book clubs. And I always like to ask people, I think, Gretchen, did we talk about this at your book club? I think we did too. And I always, you know, kind of ask people, so who do you see in these roles? Just because it's fun to, you know, think about. And I have to say, like 85 to 90% of the time, people will say Emma Stone for Riley, which is exactly who I think of. So it must be perfect. We need to work on getting her signed on. Yeah. So Emma Stone is probably who I think of for Riley. And then Ridley, I don't know who I would go. It would have to be somebody pretty exceptional. I don't know. Anyone have thoughts on this?
Sharon Stone.
Maybe a little older.
Okay.
So when I was writing the third book,